Hey everyone, welcome back, and I hope you're all doing wonderful. Today we're jumping into r/AmITheA, where people describe a certain situation they're in, and you and I are going to decide whether or not the original poster is the a-hole in any given scenario. So as we go through this, comment down below whether or not you think OP is the a-hole. And also, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Am I the a-hole for bringing my baby to a child-free wedding? My cousin lives a 6-hour drive from me and the rest of our family. A few months ago, we all drove over there for his wedding. Due to limited space, no children were invited to the wedding, except the bride's young nieces and nephews. My baby was 10 months old at the time, and I wasn't comfortable leaving him alone in an unfamiliar place with a stranger, which was a babysitter that my other cousins hired for their own kids. So I decided to bring him to the wedding. I wrote on the RSVP that I was bringing him, but he would be sitting on my lap and I would bring my own food for him. My cousin didn't say anything, so I assumed that he was okay with it. My baby cried at the ceremony, but I quickly took him out of the room. At the reception, I had him with me the whole time in a body carrier. He didn't make much of a fuss, and I thought everything was okay. After the wedding, my aunt, the groom's mom, confronted me and told me that I was rude for bringing my baby without permission. I explained that I wrote on the RSVP what I was planning to do, but my cousin didn't object. She said that my cousin and his bride had a problem with it, but the bride didn't want to start any drama because she doesn't know me well. My other cousin's baby was 7 months old at the time, and my aunt said that he had no problem leaving his baby with a certified babysitter, and I should have done the same. And some of my cousins were upset because they thought that the groom gave me special treatment by letting me bring my baby and making them leave their kids with a babysitter. I didn't mean to start any drama. Am I the a-hole? OP, I gotta break it to you. I think you're the a-hole here. You got invited to a wedding where you understood that there were no kids allowed, and you decide to RSVP, and in that RSVP is when you ask if you can bring your kid, when you know that it's against the rules, and you're probably just hoping that they'll make an exception for you. But when you don't get an answer, you interpret their silence as a yes. And since they're planning a wedding, they probably have a lot of stuff going on, so maybe they didn't see your question. Actually, now that I mention it, you don't even ask if you can bring him. You said, I wrote on the RSVP that I was bringing him, which is even worse. But despite all that, you still decided to bring your baby. And your baby disrupting the ceremony is probably exactly why they didn't want kids there in the first place. And to be honest, the bride and groom really cut you some slack there because they let it go. And it wasn't even the bride and groom that confronted you either, it was the groom's mom. And you know, I get it, the kid needs to be watched. But as a parent, that's kind of your responsibility to figure it out, but also without breaking the wedding rules. You could have used that time before the wedding to figure out what you're going to do about it. Either way, I think OP is the a-hole here. Am I the a-hole for recording my female coworker without her permission? I know the title sounds bad, but hear me out. I'm a 28-year-old male. I have a female coworker who's 26, who likes to flirt with all of the men at work. My wife, 24, knows about her and how I feel. Coworker stays away from me unless it's work-related, because I shot her down a few times and told her on Monday, if she didn't knock it off, I would report her to HR. Well, yesterday, that coworker found my wife's social media and messaged her telling her that I'm a creep and won't leave her alone, and that I tried to pay her for sex. I was honestly disgusted. I ignore her existence unless it's work-related, and I couldn't believe the blatant lies she was telling. So today, I go into work and have my phone in my hand, and recorded our conversation when I confronted her. I didn't show her face. The camera was facing the floor, so all that was shown was the shoes. After some back and forth, she admitted she was mad that I threatened HR, and hoped my wife would force me to quit my job so I wasn't a problem anymore. So I took the recording and the messages to HR, and she was fired immediately. On the way out of the building, she screamed at me that I was an a-hole, and a few other choice words for recording her without her permission, and that she's suing me for it. Even a few coworkers said I was wrong for it, and I should have just showed HR the messages, and how she's a single mom and I just cost her kids their livelihood. So am I the a-hole? Edit to add. I appreciate all of your guys' concern about me actually getting into legal trouble. According to Google, Ohio is a one-party consent state. I have sent out a few inquiries to lawyers just to be safe, to see if she does have a case if she were to try to go the legal route. Okay, this one's plain and simple. OP, you are not the a-hole. Your promiscuous coworker hits on all the guys, and when she tried to hit on you, you turned her down. And I guess that must have hurt her ego or something, so I guess she was out for revenge. She then makes up a bunch of disgusting lies about you. All you did, OP, was prove your innocence, and you just did what you had to do. The fact that she's a single mom and you got her fired has nothing to do with it. She brought that upon herself. So yeah, not the a-hole. Am I the a-hole for letting my mother and brother become homeless? A little background, my mom is 61 and my brother is 40. They live on the East Coast in a 2-bedroom apartment together, while I, a 37-year-old, live across the country. My mom has some substance abuse issues, and about 10 years ago was in a really bad place in life, to which I emptied my savings account and gave her the $12K to go to rehab, as she was facing living on the streets. It helped her for a short time to get back on her feet. She got a job and worked her way into an apartment, which eventually was upgraded to where she lives now. My brother moved in with her because he broke up with his girlfriend and moved to live with my mom, who he knew would pay for everything so he didn't have to keep a job. Well, this worked for them until the pandemic hit, at which point they both lost their income. So they lived for a while on some unemployment, but that ran out about 8 months ago. I didn't want to see them living on the streets, so I told them I would help them for 6 months to get back on their feet while looking for a job. They didn't get jobs and used the money I was paying as an excuse to not work and just stay home. 6 months came and went, and then I kept helping for an additional 2 months. When I would tell them I was done, they would say some pretty awful things to me. Well, I finally told them I was done giving them money, as it's not fair that I have paid roughly $10K of my money to them, while they aren't even trying to get their lives in order. I found out they didn't use all the money I gave them for rent for June, and only paid half. Now they have late fees and still haven't paid the rest. They also have $0 for July, so obviously they are going to be evicted. I sent them shelter information, to which they refused to stay there and told me they will live in my brother's small car with no AC. My mom has some serious back problems, so I know the likelihood of getting employment is nil, as she can't stand longer than 20 minutes at a time. We tried disability, but it was denied. But my brother is a fully capable man. I have the money to help. It wouldn't bankrupt me by any means, but this is money I'm trying to put towards my future in retirement with my husband, so I don't end up in this situation. My mom keeps telling me without my help, they will be homeless within the month, and I feel awful not helping her because she's an old woman. But the thought of helping my brother too in the process keeps me from giving her anything. So am I the a-hole if I don't continue to pay for their rent and let them become homeless instead? OP, you already gave them thousands of dollars. You've already helped them tremendously, and whatever the hell they did with that money, who knows? But the fact of the matter is, they're obviously taking advantage of you. You have to draw a line somewhere, because if you don't, they're probably just going to keep asking for more and more money and guilt-tripping you every time, further enabling them to not have to get jobs or have any kind of responsibility. You can only help so much when they're not even willing to help themselves. So obviously, you're not the a-hole. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife that she doesn't need to be with her sick friend at the hospital? So my wife has a friend from childhood named Anthony. I am being completely honest here when I say that he and I don't get along. It's not like he is rude or disrespectful, nothing like that. But all I feel towards him is annoyance, so to speak, because of how much my wife sees him. He lives alone and now suffers from a medical condition, cancer, that requires him to go to the hospital regularly to receive treatment. I found out that my wife promised to go with him to every chemo treatment as support. She said it's a commitment she made to be there for him during this rough time, since he has no one else beside him. Okay, I had no issue with that at first, but then this started affecting me. For example, I can't go see my friends because I have to stay with my son on X day, so my wife could be with Anthony for his treatment, etc. I've talked to her about it, but she said that Anthony needs company, and that she's just being supportive, and this is when he needs her the most. I let it go, but last week was just kind of my last straw. Anthony had another chemo session treatment, and my wife wanted to go with him, and asked me to stay home with our son. I told her I had a meetup with my mom and sister to eat lunch, and that I won't be home. She said she needed to go be with him, and I kind of flipped out at her and said that she doesn't need to be with him, and could literally go see him at home the next day or something. She threw a fit and called me cruel for forcing her to leave Anthony by himself, since she's all he has and that I was making her look bad. She also said that my appointment with my mom and sister wasn't as important as a chemo session, but I decided to just leave to end the argument. She ended up staying at home but kept ignoring me when I got back, calling me selfish for not letting her be there to support Anthony with what he's going through. Some of her girlfriends think I'm being a controlling jerk with no consideration for Anthony and what he's going through. Am I the a-hole? Yes, you are. I feel like it shouldn't be that big of a deal to just, reschedule your meetups with your friends and family. Especially if these chemo treatments are a regular thing, you and your wife can plan ahead, and you can make sure that you don't have anything going on during the chemo treatment.